Greetings, greetings, greetings. Hello, everyone. How are you? This Thursday evening, it is so exciting to be back here in the studio with you. And I am your host, Shay Robinson. Remember, welcome to Hearts and Heels, where the talk is everything from your heart to your heels. I'm glad that you're connecting with me tonight on Hearts and Heels on 90.7 WBAS FM, on the TuneIn app, on the website, Radio Land, social media at Hearts and Heels One, on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Follow, connect, and share Hearts and Heels as we provide shows that you want to experience. Now, tonight you can call in at 334-318-6375. That is 334-318-6375, as we're talking about everything from your heart to your heels tonight. We will have a special guest that will come on and share later. Meantime, I want to talk about this one thing to the heart of the matter as we are preparing. We're at the beginning of this year, and I know January, if you know, if you've been like me, you've dealt with a lot of different things. It's been full of ups, full of downs, full of experiences that you didn't anticipate going through. As we get to the heart of things, I want us to remember this one thing. There's some voting rights that are on the table. And I've had plenty of discussions over the past few weeks that's dealt with a lot of the voting rights issues, the laws, the things that are happening right now in Congress and Senate. Pay attention to the news. To the heart of it today is why have at this point, why is it that we still have deadlines on voting rights? I want us to ask ourselves that question. Why are we still having deadlines and it expiring? And what is happening? And why has it taken so long for us not to get these laws passed where voting rights are given to everybody at all times? I know there are two bills that are on the floor, so I just want to share these two with you. Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement. Those are two bills that are on the floor currently, and they are currently being the Congress and the Senate. They're talking about them. They've been going through a lot of different things. And here's some things that the Voting Act is talking about. Early voting standards is trying to establish early voting standards for everyone across the United States. It's trying to establish acceptable forms of voter ID. What voter ID is acceptable for you to use when you go to vote. Also, making Election Day a national holiday. Making poll sites to keep the lines within 30 minutes, increasing penalties for voting intimidation and deception, restoring voting rights to people with felony convictions after they've been released from prison, Election Day voter registration, outlaw party redistricting. I can't say the word, but that means, in other words, not lining things up where certain parties have an advancement over another one. The John Lewis voting right advancement is dealing with a lot of different things, but one of the main things is extending some voting rights to Native Americans. So I say all this to say it is very important that we stay engaged and stay involved in what's happening overall, because those things are impacting us and impacting our future. Georgia's making laws. Texas they're making laws. A lot of states are making laws that's impacting us, and we don't realize it. So my quest for you tonight is that everybody that can reach out to your Senate representatives, reach out to the people who you have voted to go and represent you so that they can vote and they can put the right things on the bill, and they can pass some laws that really impact us. Because elections from last year, when we dealt with the insurrection at the White House, and everything that happened there, If you look at the news, if you've seen it over the past couple of weeks, you've seen the TV shows where they talked about the violence that was ensued upon on last year, all because we talk about that voting is not done right, and there are so many things that are happening to keep our votes from counting, and people are stealing elections. Well, if we have bills on the floor that will help keep us from getting to that place again, we have to be responsible citizens and make sure that they're voting, that they're talking about it, that they're having these discussions that they need to have in order to make sure that the things are being done the right way, and that we won't have what happened last January, that won't happen again. Because if you're like me, I'm still in shock and awe that happened, because somebody said, oh, the election was stolen, because they had all these different things that could have happened. Well, now is our opportunity to come together and right some wrongs now. So reach out to your congressman. Here's a website that you can go to in case you don't know who is responsible for your area. The website is www.cqrcengage.com. Again, that's www.cqrcengage.com. Reach out to them, let them know that you want your votes, and you want them to have the conversations. You want them to put the bill on the floor. You want them to vote. You don't want them to keep stalling for another year trying to get things through. Let's get it done, America. And now we have our special guest with us. Hey, how are you?
Get myself unmuted here. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. We have with us
Lighting's
tonight.
bad this way. Let's turn.
As I stated before, I'm super excited to have this young gentleman on with us. His name is Mayor Timothy Ragland. He is Talladega's youngest and first African American mayor. And I have a lot more accolades that I'm going to share about him along the way. But Mayor Ragland, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate your time. How are you feeling in this COVID world?
I'm feeling blessed. A lot of things going on, but I'm feeling great. How about you?
Oh yeah, I'm making it. Now, you've been in office for 2.5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us a few things that you've learned about being a mayor.
My term began in November 2019, about 4 or 5 months before we entered the COVID world. And, so I had a plan that I wanted to put in place and things I wanted to get done as mayor. And then we get hit with the public health crisis that we haven't seen in over a century. And so those plans had to be adapted a bit. And that was kind of my first lesson of being a mayor: be adaptable, be fluid, be able to change. And so, that's been an interesting journey, trying to get a handle and keep people safe from COVID, and with in early 2020 doing mask mandates and making sure people's water didn't get cut off in the midst of the pandemic, and even learning about public health. I don't have a background in public health, but during this pandemic, I've had to lean on experts who have studied this kind of thing for their entire careers, and take the advice of experts. And that's probably the second lesson I would say is lean on folks who know what they're doing, who've been doing it a long time. So those are kind of two things that I've learned right off as being mayor.
I know to be mayor during a pandemic must be hard and difficult because there are so many things to juggle. And you're currently in school still?
I graduated May of last year.
May of last year.
Finished last year. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank
So
you.
you graduated from Faulkner University.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah,
And
finished law school there.
what law are you anticipating practice, or is this just part of your journey to your next?
It's kind of part of the journey, but I'm also really interested in nonprofit work. I went to law school because a lot of people are not don't have the knowledge to navigate the legal system, right? And a lot of time people are left out, and they say, "Well, no, you can't do that." But one of the things they teach you in law school that
right,
there's a no, but if it's not in the book, everything has to be right. If it's not in writing, then you got a little leeway. So I try to explain that, and that's kind of something I use as being mayor as well, to try to help people navigate government and the legal system.
Well, if you're just tuning in, we have Mayor Timothy Ragland. He is the youngest mayor ever in Talladega, Alabama, but he's the first African American mayor. He has education from Marion Institute, AUM, Faulkner University, so he's very familiar with the Montgomery area.
Hmm.
He ran in October 2019. You ran and won, and you won by 24 votes. Wow. Um,
Yeah.
that has to be when the last 24 votes were counted. How'd you feel?
Yeah, that's a funny story. I was running a runoff, and so the first election, the general election, I was at City Hall, and every time they give you updates, and I was there, and I was looking at them, like, okay, where am I? Where am I? And it was very stressful. So the runoff election, I went to the restaurant where my watch party was, and I just asked one of the campaign staff members, will y'all just go and don't tell me anything until it's over? And so they called me much sooner than I expected, and they said you won. And I said won, like which precinct? And they said no, 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 you won. And I was shocked. I was elated, anxious. Almost every emotion you can imagine. I felt that night.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Listen, you're listening to Mayor Timothy Ragland on WVAS 90.7 with the Hearts and Hills. I'm your host, Shay Robinson. If you have a question for him, you can call in at 334-318-6375. We have him for a little time right now, so we have a few more questions for him. Again, that number is 334-318-6375. Now, I do want to ask you some questions. So we're here at
Sure.
this point, and I was just watching, it's interesting enough, I was watching this I've been dealing with COVID for the past couple weeks, and I've had
Hmm.
plenty of time to watch TV. And one of the things I watched was the FBI MLK and the documentary. And I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it is on one of the channels, and it's a really interesting documentary. And it talked about MLK, and of course, with us just celebrating his birthday and having all these different events, it talked
Hmm.
about him dealing with so many different aspects of it. Of course, the FBI supposedly was recording him, and they have all these back recordings, and he realized at some point that there were some recordings that could possibly mean different things that he didn't want to share. And then he started really dealing with the pressure of being in politics, and it really weighed on him. They
Yeah.
talked about the heaviness of the critics and the people around you. I want to talk about how you have handled the critiques of what you're attempting to do in your area.
Hmm. Yeah, it can be very heavy, and I appreciate you for asking this question because yesterday, a fellow mayor in Hyattsville, Maryland, Mayor Kevin Ward, committed suicide. Um, and I just want to encourage folks, if you have those suicidal ideations, or those thoughts coming to your mind, talk to somebody, um, because we much rather talk to you than plan a funeral.
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, it can be heavy. It can really be heavy. There are times when you don't feel understood, or you're putting forth a plan that you think will better the community for everyone, and segments of folks disagree, and you kind of just wish that they could understand your heart is for the community. And so how do I deal with that? I'm a Christian, so I pray. I have moments where I just have to just step away, go in my office, and listen to some gospel music in the quiet and solitude, and just like, Lord, I need your help. Um, you have to have an outlet. For me, I'm a millennial, 31, so I grew up in the PlayStation generation, so I got a PS5. So I take some time at night, and now every now and then I'll play with that and kind of just clear my mind of everything that's going on, because it's very it's a very heavy job. I mean, that's the way I can describe it. You're dealing with decisions that you make today will be affecting people for decades to come. And so you want to make the right decision, but that can be, again, very heavy. I know I sound like a broken record, but it is very is a big responsibility, and I'm just thankful that I'm in this position.
Yeah, and I can, so with you being young and that pressure, right? and you being the first African American, and that
Mhm.
pressure, because not only do you have the pressure that you've placed upon yourself, the burden that you felt in actually running for this position, but it's the burden of having other people on your shoulders, or
Mhm.
opening doors for others, and just the burden of trying to help a community to grow forward. Do you experience a lot of racism in your position, or and if so, how do you navigate that?
I have to say, at the beginning, when I was after the election, after I won, I did get some messages on Facebook that were not kind. But I kind of expected that. But that, I will say that people have been, they've worked with me very well, and they let me know their thoughts, and I, try to share with them mine. Um, we have the super speedway in Talladega, and
Mm-hmm.
what was that, 2020, I think it was. Bubba Wallace found what he thought was a noose in his stall, and I issued a statement, and I received some comments from that, but it was all from people outside of the city. So I can say had a little bit, but since then it's been smooth sailing in that regard.
Yeah, I forgot about that incident. That was a big
Hmm.
thing a couple years
Yeah.
ago. Wow, so you told us about some challenges that you've had. Tell me about some success. I want to know what's been great since you've been in office.
Hmm. When I ran, one of the things that I was really passionate about was restoring pride to our community. We had been in the news for bad things, and people I felt were not proud to say that I'm from Talladega,
Hmm.
or that they lived in Talladega, and so I wanted to help change that. And so I think we've done that. We've been in the news for a lot of good things. Most recently, we launched a internship program for college students. We have Talladega College, the oldest private HBCU in the state. So
Yeah.
we'll be taking students from Talladega College and Central Alabama Community College, and we'll bring them in, and they'll be interns in one of our 15 city departments, as well as in the summer, we're going to be launching a fellowship program, internship program for high school students. And we'll take 20 high school students from our city school system, as well as the Alabama Institute for the Deaf and Blind, which is in Talladega. And we'll do the same thing with those students and have them in our 15 departments. Um, we've we're starting a workforce development program with those three entities as well: AIDB, Talladega College, and Central Alabama Community College. And this is for folks in the community who did not go to college, they didn't go to trade school, but they're looking to better their prospects in the job market. Um, and so we're going to tailor those programs to the jobs that we're trying to attract to the area, so that way we can tell folks, listen, you got a ready workforce, so just come on, and we got the people ready to go. So hopefully that'll bring in some more industry in the area. And of course, the things like roads and bridges, that's always a big concern for folks. We were able to get some of those done at the beginning, or prior to the pandemic in 2020. It slowed down a bit since then, but we're working with the city council to get the capital improvement budget confirmed, and everything signed off there, so we can begin getting some more roads paved, and bridges fixed, and so that we can get folks where they need to go as efficiently as possible. And of course, I've been fortunate to work with the administration, the Biden administration, and try to help get some of that rescue package money to the city, and work with them
Hmm.
on a number of issues that I can't share yet, but in the coming days and weeks and months we'll be able to share. And so we're really excited about being able to have an impact, not just in Talladega, but in the state of Alabama as well.
Wow, I love that you kept going on and on and on. I wanted to just let you get it all out. I appreciate you sharing
Thank
that,
you.
because sometimes people don't understand the work behind the work.
Hmm.
We only see certain parts of it because we're only focusing on that. Now, your campaign and your win was historic, right? It
Hmm.
was something amazing. I know you celebrated during that time, and you have now touched the world. Did you ever imagine yourself in this place?
I being mayor of my hometown was my dream for a long time. And I actually told my family that I was going to do it, probably 10 years prior to me doing it. And it's just amazing to see. I didn't at the time. I didn't think about the historic nature of it. I didn't think about being the first Black person to hold this position, or the youngest person to do it. I didn't anticipate all the news coverage because I thought, we're a small city, nobody's gonna really care that much. But it's really been a whirlwind. The night of the election, I got calls from folks like Senator Cory Booker, at the time Vice President Biden. I still don't know how they got my number. Um, but I got calls from a whole lot of national politicians, and it's really been amazing the opportunities that I've had. Um, and again, that's something that I hope is a source of pride for people in our city, that we're on a national stage, and it's for positive things. And so I've really been blessed. That's all I can say.
And I know it's been a blessing, but you've done something that I talk about a lot, just recently with people that I'm in conversation with. It's always about the preparation. Like
Hmm.
it just, you didn't just pop up on the scene. There was a lot of preparation that was done. Talk about some of your
Hmm.
experiences prior to running for mayor.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole lot of preparation. I mean, I could go back to my time at AUM. I served in the student
Go
government
Warhawks.
association. Right, go Warhawks. Served in the student government association there, and I actually got to work with some state legislators on providing more funds to public institutions. And so that was kind of my first foray into the political arena.
Hmm.
And that work allowed me to go and work in 2016 for Secretary Clinton when she ran for president. And I was able to work in Northern Florida, getting people registered to vote, and working as an organizer there. And then I worked for Doug Jones, and I worked for Walt Maddox as a regional field director, and I was responsible for 11 counties in the eastern portion of our state, and getting those folks out to vote and registered, and all that kind of thing. And we won a lot of races, or we run a lot of counties in that election that we were not expected to win. And
Hmm.
that was not due to me, it was due to the folks that were working under me, but they did a great job, and we were able to make some noise there. And then I worked for the Alabama Emergency Management Agency, and helping them create an internship program for college students and law students. Um, Worked with the Alabama State House as a fellow, helping to draft legislation and track legislation, and keep the representatives abreast of all the things that come with being a legislator, as far as constituents, and working to make sure that they weren't violating any laws and that kind of thing.
Yep.
And in the midst of that, I started law school. And in the midst of law school, I started running for mayor, and that brings us up to today.
And so I love it because I heard, I was reading as I was researching, for you to come on tonight. You talked about the conversation that you had with someone in Florida, where they
Hmm.
really talked about, having someone in front of them to talk about voting and their perspective and what's
Hmm.
important to them. How have you taken that and used that in your service to your city?
Hmm. Yeah, I'll never forget that lady. I was in a housing project, and I went, knocked on the door, and talked to her. She was an older lady, and she told me she had never voted. I think she told me she was 91 or 92. She had never voted. And so I got to register her to vote for the first time, which is just amazing. But from that, I found out that, sometimes we think people are apathetic, or we think people just don't care. But in reality, they just have not had the opportunity to participate in the civic process. And so I feel like that's part of my responsibility, to go out and talk to folks and let them know what's going on, and how they can help. And I
Hmm.
think that's any person who's running for any office or serving in any office. It's not the people's job to be excited about you. You should be excited about helping them. And when you have that excitement, that'll be reciprocated.
Yes, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Shay Robinson with Hearts and Hills on WVAS 90.7. We have the Mayor Timothy Ragland on with us. If you don't know him, please get to know him, follow him on social media, and the work that he's doing in Talladega. He was elected in 2019 as the youngest mayor, and the first African American mayor of Talladega. He is from Talladega, but Montgomery will claim him a little bit because he's been here at AUM and Faulkner, has his
Mhm.
degree, has his law degree. He won by 24 votes. I love it. I'm gonna keep saying over and over again because it doesn't matter how big you win as long as you win. So,
Mhm.
which is another testament of his story. At the beginning of the hour, I talked about to the heart of it, and I was sharing. One of the things that I want to start doing with this show is sharing some things that's happening in the world
Mhm.
and sharing some issues that we have that we need to be concerned with as a people, not just a black people but a
Mhm.
people, because it's impacting everyone, and that is voting rights.
Yeah.
Explain, if you would, from your perspective, share why is it important for us to be engaged in this conversation with voting rights.
Yeah. We just celebrated Dr. King's life and his legacy about a week or so ago, and he was a fierce advocate for voting rights. He was one of the driving forces behind the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Um, and I think I should add, it was a bipartisan effort to reauthorize it over several decades,
Mm-hmm.
with even Republican administration, Republican presidents who reauthorized that piece of legislation. And so we're in a very partisan time in our history, and so we have to remember that there are people who don't have access to the same resources that we do, that we may enjoy, and we kind of can be we're privileged in that way. But voting rights is not just for Black people. It's not just for brown people. It's for everybody, because if you can cut off somebody's rights today, they'll be able to cut off yours tomorrow. And so we need to remember that when we're having these discussions. And in my opinion, it should not be a political issue. It's just about right or wrong. Everybody in our nation was founded on the ideals and the principles of democracy. And at the heart of democracy is voting. If you don't have voting, you don't have a democracy. And so, if we're going to
Mm-hmm.
continue to be, as Dr. King said, true to what we said on paper, we have to make sure that every eligible citizen has the right to vote, and that it's easy to vote. So, yeah, that's kind of how I feel on it.
What's your favorite Martin Luther King quote?
Oh my goodness.
I put you on the
Um,
spot that time.
yeah, I think my favorite one is we are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We're confronted with the fierce urgency of now. It's no time for apathy or complacency. And I think that's one of my favorite ones, because although he said it in the 60s, it's still relevant today. Tomorrow is today. We have to act on voting rights. We have to act to make sure that folks are able to provide for their families with a living wage. We have to ensure that people have access to health care and medicine,
Mhm.
because in Alabama we've had our state legislature to close, not accept Medicaid to the fullest extent, and that's resulted in hospitals in rural areas being closed. We have people in Lowndes County who have open sewage in their backyard in 2022, because and we have our governor who's spending $400,000 of our rescue package money on prisons, when people who don't have access to proper sewage systems. And so we have a lot of issues that we have to face today, because I don't want to leave my daughter in a world, or I don't want her to look back and say, well, Daddy, what did you do
Mhm.
when all these issues were going on? I want to say that I tried and I did everything I could to leave the world better than I found it.
Yes, I hear her back there, being a part of the
Hmm.
interview too. Tell us that we said hello. And so I want to switch gears as we talk about a few things, because I want to touch on quite a few things. One of the things, I mean, one of the reasons I'm excited to have you on is it's good to hear from a black male perspective. A lot of times we don't have the opportunity to hear about some of the tough issues and some of the challenges we're experiencing as a community. Now, the first thing I want to ask you is, how do you balance having your natural reactions to all the things that's happened over the past couple of years, in the midst of you celebrating this momentous thing? How do you balance your composure of just being a black man and understanding that there are some things that you still have to deal with in government to help with the inequality and the equity of what's happening.
Mhm. That's a, excuse me. That's a really good question. And I'm still figuring that out actually. Um, I think I was much more at the beginning of my term. I was much more reserved because I didn't want to make a mistake. Um, I've had mayor friends who told me, it takes about 2 years for you to figure out what you're doing and to get into the groove. And I think that's about right because I'm just over 2 years now, and so I feel like I'm in command of what I'm doing. I know how things work, and so I'm able to be more outspoken on things. And so I definitely now am able to just tell folks what they need to know in a very professional way, because I have to be mindful of my position, and I don't want to uh, be disrespectful to the position that I'm in the seat that I hold. And I'm also mindful that the job that I do will either help or hinder the next African American or first
Hmm.
woman or first Latinx or first other person to attempt to get this seat. And so I'm very mindful of that. Um, but yeah, there's a time and a place to do everything, and there's a way to do things in decency and order. And I try to make sure that I follow that code.
So, are you being intentional in your community and changing the narrative for Black men?
Definitely. And I try to, one of the first things that I did was I wore a hoodie to a council meeting, hoodie and jeans and some tennis shoes, because I
Wow.
want folks to know it doesn't matter what you have on. Is that's really relevant, because what I have on doesn't affect what's in my mind,
Hmm.
right? And so you can't just see me and see I'm a young Black man and I got on a hoodie. That means that I'm a thug or that I'm in the streets or I'm doing this, that, and the third. You don't know who I am until you talk to me. And so I want that to be something. That was a very subtle act, but I hope that it showed the community, and that it showed young Black men who may not be in their suit stage yet. They're still in their hoodie and their J stage,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Be who you are in the time that you are, and but don't let that take away from what you know, and be able to speak truth to power.
Was that able to that when you did that, when you walked in with that hoodie, did it open up conversation?
It did. Now in the meeting, I saw people looking like, what is he? Why he got that on?
Hmm.
But afterwards, I was able to talk to folks, and I reminded them about Trayvon Martin, and I reminded them about a whole lot of other people who were killed because of how they looked or what the music that they were listening to. And so I hope that those conversations were able to spark other conversations when people got home and said, "Oh, did you see what the mayor was wearing at the council meeting? Or did you hear about what he was wearing at the council meeting?" And even for our police department, they see, the mayor dresses like this too. So it's not a something that you should be alarmed about because of what somebody has on. You never know what that person may go. They may not have the money to buy a suit yet. They may
Hmm.
not. Maybe they don't like the way suits feel. There's a whole lot of reasons why somebody may choose to not wear a suit. Sometimes I love my suits, I do, but sometimes you got to go with the polo and some jeans, and that's okay too.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people, and I'm not sure about your particular city and just your violence rates, but I know in Montgomery, we've dealt with a series of crime. We just had a video that was showing some students, some young people jumping on police cars, and
Oh
there've
wow.
been some wave of violence that's happened here, and I'm quite sure you have experienced some
Yeah.
there.
Hmm.
How are you tackling this?
Yeah. So I see it in two lanes. One, um, yes, we have seen an uprise in violence over starting during the COVID period, and it's kind of continued since. Um, and we handled that by adding some deterrent measures. We got a shot spotter system. Um, and if you're familiar with those, they kind of, somebody fires a gun wherever it is in the city, it'll trace it, and it could give the police um, all, not the exact location, but within so many feet of where the shot
Wow.
came from. So that's been really helpful in kind of deterring some of it. We also are working on getting a camera system that allows, and I think Montgomery has this, um, that allows private homes and businesses to allow their camera feeds to go into the city's database, and so we can see almost a 360-degree view of what's happening in the city, and then we can tie that into the shot spotter system. So if there's a shot, the cameras will in that area will kind of alert and see who is coming in that area and that kind of thing, and so that helps on the deterrent side. On the other side, we know crime is very closely tied to economic. Cannot talk. Crime is very closely tied to economics, and so we want to put in some incentives like the workforce development program to help get folks in it, and that program is free of charge. So people can participate and know when I finish, I'll have a job making 15, 16 plus dollars an hour. And so we're hopeful that will tamper down some of the crime as well. And also we know, you have to start at a young age. And so we have invested through the appropriations process in pre-K and some children's programs that will kind of help to get those children at an early age and let them know that there's a different path than what you may have seen. And so we kind of taken a 3-avenue approach to it, and we're definitely going to keep monitoring, and hopefully we'll see a downturn in the violence.
Yeah. So, what type of programming are you offer for young people to kind of um, help them think about doing things a little bit differently? What type of thing? What type of programming? What type of services? What type of opportunities are you providing for young people as we continue to seek ways to deter them from violence and just that free time that really
Hmm.
causes us to get in trouble?
Yeah, yeah. So we one of the things that's big for us is sports. We a lot of kids in our area play basketball, and so we obviously have the school programs, but the city also has basketball leagues, and we're looking into expanding that to um, older age groups because primarily it's for young kids. But we want to look into older age groups up through the 20s and have some kind of men leagues. And with that, we have several nonprofits in the area that are run by men, and we want to have those men to serve as coaches and referees so that they can build that camaraderie. Also, with our police department, have those guys serving as coaches as well, so that we can build that familiarity. So they see somebody on the street, they don't think automatically, oh, well, he's up to no good, or the person sees a cop and think, oh, they're gonna hurt me. You have to build, I believe, in a community-based approach to policing. Other things that we're doing is I work very closely with our superintendent, who shout out to Dr. Lee. He's phenomenal. We're so happy to have him. We're working on a men's youth summit for teenage men, and we're going to do one for
Hmm.
young women as well. And so we're going to bring in men from every walk of life, chemists, athletes, myself, Dr. Lee, teachers, every career field you can think of will be there, so that they'll have that exposure because it's hard to be something that you haven't seen. And so we're going to try to show them a plethora of examples of what they can aspire to. And then I work with nonprofits and try to help them because it's they
Yeah.
have visions and there are things that the city can't do for legal reasons or for capacity reasons, and the nonprofits in the city are able to fill that gap. And so we work with them to make sure that they have the funding that they need, and the resources. And I try to help them highlight all the wonderful things that they do in the city, because sometimes I'm sure there are resources available, but if you don't know about it, it doesn't help you.
You never
And
get it.
so I try to serve in that way, to use my platform to highlight what they're doing. And so I think we're making good progress. I'm really excited about where we'll be.
Great. I do want to talk about a couple more things, then I'll let you go. I know you got the baby in the back that's calling for your attention. She's like, Daddy, Daddy. Thank you so much. If you're just tuning in, this is Shay Robinson on Hearts and Hills on 90.7 WBAS. We have the Mayor Timothy Ragland, who's been sharing with us tonight. In case you're not familiar with him, he is the mayor of Talladega. He's actually the youngest mayor of Talladega and the first African American. He hails from that area. He attended the Marion Institute, AUM, Faulkner University. He's very familiar with Montgomery, Alabama, and I keep saying that he won by 24 votes in 2019. Tell me about your experience at Marion Institute. A lot of kids, what I loved about in researching you, we talked about, just being able to go to Marion as a 2-year system, and then transferring to a place where you felt like someone can help you, and they can help groom you into the next level, give you the attention
Mhm.
that you need. Tell us about that experience at Marion.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So, for the folks that don't know, as you said, Marion is a 2 year military junior college. And I went that route because I was in the Army prior to going to Marion. I was in the Army for 4 years. In total, I did 8 years. And so I kind of had that military background, and that's something I enjoyed the structure. It's a small school, so you get to have that one-on-one interaction with your professors, and you get to know pretty much everybody on campus. I was fortunate to be able to be in the band. In the band, I was a percussionist. In my spare time, spare
You played
time,
the drums.
I play sax, bass guitar, and percussion, and
Wow.
so that's something that I enjoyed, and I got to couple that there at Marion. Um, and that kind of led me to AUM, because AUM it's bigger, but it's still small. And I still got that interaction with the professors that I was looking for, and I still talk to several of them today. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time in undergrad. One of the things at Marion that the president would say often is, "You'll miss it when you're gone," and my friends were like, "Nope. As soon as we leave, like, we're gonna be not gonna think about it anymore." But we talk about it, and we do miss it. It's good times.
So, as a nation, we are approaching the month of February, where it is
Hmm.
considered Black History Month, where
Hmm.
we acknowledge and celebrate the contributions that African Americans have had over the past couple of years. I am so glad that your name is part of that list now. It will join, I'm quite sure, as history is being told. I do want to ask you this question. As we are experiencing um, uh, as we're still experiencing first, and I want to give you a few firsts. So Kamala Harris, she became the first Black woman of color to be VP for the United States. We have Amanda Gorman, who was the youngest African American to ever have the inaugural poet, be the inaugural poet with
Hmm.
The Hill We Climb. We have Raphael Warnock. She's the
Hmm.
first Black senator to represent Georgia. Juneteenth became a federal holiday. This is just within 2021. I'm not
Hmm.
talking about years before. This is just this past year.
Hmm.
Tashara Jones, the first Black woman to be elected mayor in St. Louis.
Hmm.
Sika
Good
Henry
friend.
became the first African American woman to be recognized as a pro triathlete in the Olympics. Um, we have Tamara Mensa Stock, the first Black woman to win a gold medal in wrestling. Sorry, and Zelia Avant-Garde. She's the 14-year-old from Louisiana who became the first
Hmm.
Black American contestant to win the national spelling bee after almost
Yes.
100 years of competition.
Hmm.
And now, just at the beginning of this year, we experienced another first, the first African American woman to appear on U.S. currency, and that was none other than Maya Angelou.
Hmm.
What is your advice to the young man, the young woman who is considering to follow their dreams, which seems way bigger than what they think?
Hmm. Yeah. I got to shout out Mayor Jones. She's a friend of mine there in St. Louis. Um, yeah, to that young person, young man, young woman, follow your passions. Um, there'll be people along the way who are doubters or detractors, and they don't understand uh, the path that you're taking. But the beauty of that is they're not supposed to. Your passion is yours, and you have to. At the end of the day, you're the person that's going to live your life. Follow that passion, and it'll take you to platforms beyond your wildest dreams. That doesn't mean it'll be easy. That doesn't mean it'll be a walk in the park every day. But at the end of the day, it will be worth it.
And what do you say to that person whose situation? Because I think this is where we get tripped up as people. Um, everything isn't placed in front of us. Like
Hmm.
there are challenges, and I'm quite
Right.
sure you could share a lot of challenges that you
Hmm.
experienced in your journey, and please feel free to share them. But what gave you the strength to overcome those challenges, and let's encourage someone so they can overcome theirs.
Hmm. Yeah. I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago, and we were talking about some of the challenges that we had experienced together. I'm from a single parent household. My parents were 16 when I was born. And so that
Wow.
means, there were a lot of times when mama had to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet and they still didn't meet.
Hmm.
There were a lot of challenges financially. The statistics were stacked against me. I'll say it that way. My dad went to jail for over a decade in federal prison when I was about 8 years old. And so if you looked at me then, you had no indication that I would be where I am today. But there was a village of folks who poured into me, who saw something in me, and they pushed me. Like you said, there's going to be obstacles, and that's I think that's the beauty of life, being able to overcome something that you didn't think or others didn't think you would be able to overcome, right? And so, if you don't have obstacles, you probably are not doing the right thing. You're probably honestly on the wrong path because life isn't easy and it's not intended to be. Obstacles are kind of for me. If I'm facing obstacles, that means then okay, I'm doing something that I need to be doing,
Hmm.
because, like I said, the journey is never going to be easy, but it's always worth it.
Yeah, it's about pushing through,
Hmm.
like you said, if it's easy, you got to look at it 2 or 3 times, but
Right.
as long as you know you're fighting and preparing for the next moment. um i want to I want to thank you for sharing just a little bit of your testimony, because I think that helps a lot of people to see that, trying to become, well, your dream or aspiration to become mayor was not something that was born in the midst of the healthiest situations.
Hmm.
It wasn't, not to say that your life wasn't, great and wonderful,
Hmm.
in whatever way, but normally when we see someone that's broken records or that's reached beyond what the limitations are, we automatically assume that they had it all
Hmm.
together, like your
Yeah.
family had the money to pay for all this stuff that you needed
Right.
to
Yeah.
run for office. Man, I can only
Hmm.
imagine.
Yeah. No. I think over the entire campaign we spent less than $600, because
Wow.
we didn't have a lot of money. We did mostly Facebook and social media, word of mouth, and the old fashioned going to church, shaking hands, going to family reunions, just talking to people and
Oh, you
and
ate a lot of
letting our message
barbecue.
spread. Oh yeah. Hmm. Yeah, this is prior to COVID, so we didn't have any of those restrictions. But yeah, no, it was a struggle. It's a struggle, and even after becoming mayor, it was still a struggle. It's still been a struggle, but we take it day by day, and God has blessed us beyond measure, and I can only be thankful. So I count it as a privilege to be able to join you on this platform today.
Now, you've mentioned God several times, so I love that. How important is your faith?
Oh yeah, it's number one for me. Um, I couldn't imagine where I would be if I didn't know God, and He didn't. More importantly, He didn't know me. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's held me when in the darkest of nights and in the brightest of days. Yeah.
Well, as we're coming to the end of the hour, it's 6:50. Thank you so much for tuning in, out there, Radio Land, social media land. We appreciate you. Remember, this is Mayor Timothy Ragland. Follow him, support him, participate in the things that he's doing, whether it's your city or not. But it's always great to support someone who's trying to do great things. As we get ready to close out, I do want to ask you a couple more questions.
Okay.
Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? My mom. Um, like I said, I was 16 she was 16 when I was born,
Mhm.
and I have never seen any quit in her. Anytime I needed something, and most of the times when I wanted something, she made it happen. she is the epitome of strength. If I'm half as good a person as she is, I think I'll be okay.
And who do you make your decisions for?
I make my decisions for the people who are not invited to the table, for the little guy, for the man or the person that's overlooked, um, for the people that are counted out and downtrodden.
Well, okay, now Hearts and Hills, we're going to keep you accountable because you said that your vision for your city is to enhance your city's technology access. Are you
Hmm.
working on that, Mayor?
We are, and we're very excited that the rescue package passed, and we've gotten some money from the federal government that we're going to be using to expand broadband access, and we're hoping that it'll be fiber. But we got to talk to the tech folks. That's far above my pay level in
Ooh,
in
and that's a
mine,
lot
and
of
so I
money.
don't know how they, I don't know how all that works, but we're hoping there's going to be fiber access. But we're really excited to expand that to all of
Now,
our
and you talked
residents.
about the city infrastructure, so you've already talked about that. You
Hmm.
talked about increasing job opportunities for your
Hmm.
residents, implementing measures to make the town school better. How is that
Hmm.
going?
That's going very well. As I said, we got a new superintendent, Dr. Lee, and he has been with us for about 6 months. But in that time frame, he has, I mean, transformed the school system. The metrics are going through the roof. They've implemented several systems, and if anybody's in the education field, you may have heard of iReady. They're smashing their goals in iReady, and they're very responsive to the COVID-19 pandemic. In that if there's an outbreak, um, they go home and they have the tools that they need even when they're at home to be successful students. We have buses that are equipped with Wi-Fi that can go to the areas where students don't have access to Wi-Fi, and they're still able to
Mhm.
um, participate in school. And so we're moving in a great direction.
Yeah, this pandemic has made us changed a lot of how we were doing
Hmm.
things prior to pandemic. So, quick, keep doing a great work. I'm going to give you a few minutes to think on some things, your final comments that you want to share with
Okay.
everyone. As we switch over real quick, I want to tell you that tonight, thank you so much for tuning in. And as we are coming to the end of January and going into February, we never really had a conversation about this new year and what you want to do and where you want to go. And I normally don't do resolutions because I always end up breaking them. And this year, if you're like me, your month kind of starting a little late because of all the things that you've had to deal with, including kids' sickness and school closing and all these different things and just life and so many things. So I'm asking you to take a little moment this weekend to reset. And I wanted to read the scripture to you because I just want to give you a little encouragement. Philippians 4, chapter 4, and I love the scripture, so you've probably heard it. Just listen to it again. Philippians 4, verses 4 through 13. It says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say, rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Be anxious for nothing." Calm down, guys. Take deep breath. Be anxious for absolutely nothing. No matter how things try to make you feel anxious, no matter how things try to keep you frustrated, no matter how, if you're feeling discouraged, no matter what, be anxious for nothing. Not what I say, what the Bible says. But in everything, make your prayer and your supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. That means with the prayer of thanksgiving, always let God know what you need. So as you're feeling anxious about your future and what's happening next and what's happening around you, say your prayers. That's all it's saying. That's all the scripture is saying. Be confident in who your God is, and just begin to pray when anxiety come over. And it says that when you make your request known to God, when you tell God exactly what you need, when you do it with the spirit of thanksgiving, when you tell yourself, I'm not going to be anxious, then the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts. Y'all know I love hearts, right? and your minds through Christ Jesus. And then finally, whatever is true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there's any virtue and if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. So keep your minds on true things, noble things, just things, pure things, things that are lovely, things that are good report, things that are praiseworthy, not that junk, but the praiseworthy things, the things which you learned and received and heard and saw in me, these do, and the God of peace will be with you. So I just want to share with you today that the God of peace will be with you in everything that you do if you keep your mind on those things. And it goes on to talk about that he knows how the writer is saying that I've been in places where I've had a lot and I've been in a place where I've had a little. But regardless of that, my God has always been there. And it ends with in 13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So be encouraged. I'm saying pray. If I can give you anything for this year, that we need to be a people of prayer, um, beyond what we've prayed before, because prayer can change all things, not some things, all things. Mayor Ragland has spoken and he has shared his testimony on tonight, and I'm quite sure he has had plenty of nights of prayer, and that
Yes.
made some situations change. So just like you could be record breakers, you could be first times, you can change the world, you can change the nations. You have the ability to do that. All you have to do is pray, ask God your vision, your purpose, your destiny, where He's designed for you, and watch Him do some amazing things. Mayor Ragland?
Yeah. So as I was listening to you and I was thinking about what I would say, one of my favorite stories from the civil rights movement came to mind. And it's a story that happened during the bus boycott. There was a 72-year-old woman who attended Dr. King's church. Her name was Mother Pollard, and she was walking back and forth to her destination. And Dr. King saw her and he said, Mother Pollard, maybe you should retake the bus because for your health. And she looked at him and she said, my feet are tired, but my soul is rested. And from that, I got, give your faith feet. Don't just be a person that sees a problem. Be a person that works to change it. Be a thermostat and not a thermometer, right? A thermostat can control the temperature of a room. A thermostat it sets the climate. A thermometer
Yeah.
just can say, well, it's hot or it's cold. So be that thermostat and change your environment.
Wow, be the thermostat. Well, be prayerful and be the thermostat. Thank you, Mayor Ragland, for joining us
Thank you.
tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, we'll be back here on Hearts and Heels on 90.7 FMWVAS. I'm your host, Shay Robinson. I have enjoyed you tonight. I hope you have enjoyed. We got some great shows that's coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm super excited. We're going to have the Johnsons. If you know the story, there's a Kenny Johnson. It's a story about the young man in Georgia, whose family they're in a fight for their life. The mother, and the father will be on to share in a couple weeks. So stay tuned, listen, and watch all the great things that's happening here at Hearts and Heels. And whatever you do, make sure you do it with all your heart. And if you can't put your heart in it, put your heels on it and walk away. We love you guys. Have a good night.
Good night.